Moving on to the next one. A mutual fund scheme has an NAV of 120 rupees per unit. The scheme information document, SID, states that exit load is 1.5% if units are redeemed within 1 year. If an investor redeems 1,000 units after 9 months, what is the amount payable to the investor after deducting exit load, and which document primarily governs this transaction?
Here are your options. A. 1,18,200 Scheme Information Document, SID. B. 1,18,200 Statement of Additional Information, SAI. C. 1,20,000 Key Information Memorandum, KIM. Or D. 1,17,000 Scheme Information Document, SID. Take a moment to pause the video and decide.
The correct answer is option A. Let's see why. Exit load applies to the redemption amount. 1,000 units into 120 equals 1,20,000. Exit load equals 1.5% of 1,20,000 equals 1,800. Amount payable equals 1,20,000 minus 1,800 equals 1,18,200. The SID contains specific details about the scheme, including exit load. Thus, the transaction is governed primarily by the SID. Let's look at this next question. An investor refers to the Statement of Additional Information, SAI, for a mutual fund to understand the AMC's risk management policies while cross-checking the Scheme Information Document, SID, for scheme-specific investment objectives. If SEBI raises observations on both documents, what is the correct process for the mutual fund to comply, and how does this affect the legal standing of these documents?
Here are your options. A. Documents are approved by SEBI. Mutual fund cannot change content after approval. B. Mutual fund can ignore SEBI's observations as documents are only informative. Documents are not legally binding. C. Only SID needs SEBI approval. SAI is optional and non-binding. Or D. Mutual fund must incorporate SEBI's observations before filing. Both documents remain contractual and binding once accepted.
Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is option D. Let's see why. SEBI does not approve but vets the documents and issues observations. The mutual fund must incorporate these observations before filing. Both SID and SAI are legally binding as the investment contract depends on them. Hence, the investor is deemed to have accepted the terms once the application is signed. Let's look at this next question. A mutual fund scheme's Scheme Information Document, SID, mentions a minimum investment amount of 5,000 and a maximum investment of 10 lakh. If an investor invests 15 lakh and the application is accepted, what legal principle applies considering the document's mandate, and which document details these limits? Here are your options. A. Caveat emptor applies. Limits are detailed in SID. B. Investor protection overrides. Limits are detailed in SAI. C. Mutual fund must accept all investments. Limits are in Key Information Memorandum, KIM. Or D. Investment limits are suggestions only, no legal consequences. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is option A. Let's see why. The principle of caveat emptor means the investor is responsible for understanding and complying with the SID's terms. The SID contains scheme-specific investment limits. Acceptance of the application beyond limits is irregular and can be challenged legally. Test your knowledge with this one. If a mutual fund's Statement of Additional Information, SAI, is updated to include a new sponsor with a 25% stake, but the Scheme Information Document, SID, still shows the previous sponsor structure, what risk does this pose to investors, and which document must be prioritized for the latest statutory information? Here are your options. A. Investor can claim misrepresentation from SID. KIM holds latest info. B. Misleading information risk. SAI must be prioritized for statutory info. C. No impact as sponsor info is irrelevant to investments. Or D. No risk. SID always overrides SAI. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is option B. Let's see why. SAI contains statutory and corporate information such as sponsor details. If it is updated but SID is not, investors may be misled. Investors should refer to the latest SAI for accurate statutory information. A mutual fund scheme has an NAV of 45, and the key information memorandum states that the scheme invests 70% in large cap stocks and 30% in debt instruments. After a market downturn, the equity portion falls to 60% and the debt portion rises to 40% due to bond price appreciation. Does this deviation violate the documents? And which document governs investment limits and asset allocation? Here are your options. A. Yes, violation. SID governs asset allocation limits. B. No violation. SAI governs allocation changes. C. No violation. Market movements are accepted within limits detailed in SID. Or D. Yes, violation. KIM is binding for asset allocation. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is option C. Let's see why. Market movements cause temporary deviations in asset allocation. SID outlines permissible ranges and rebalancing policies. As long as deviations are within stated limits or temporary, no violation occurs. Here is another practice question. A mutual fund scheme information document, SID, has been revised to include a new exit load structure. 2% if redeemed within 6 months and 1% if redeemed after 6 months but before 1 year. An investor redeems after 7 months. According to SEBI regulations and documents, what exit load applies and where is this charge detailed? Here are your options. A. 1% detailed in SID. B. 2% detailed in SAI. C. No exit load. KIM overrides SID. Or D. Exit load as per previous SID applies. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is option A. Let's see why. The revised exit load structure applies as per SID, which details exit loads. Since redemption is after 6 months but before 1 year, 1% exit load applies. Let's tackle this exam question. An investor wants to verify the risk factors associated with the debt mutual fund scheme. The scheme information document, SID, provides scheme-specific risks, while the Statement of Additional Information, SAI, lists general risks applicable to all schemes. If SEBI has vetted both documents, which risk disclosures hold greater legal weight and why? Here are your options. A. SID risks hold greater weight. They are scheme-specific and contractually binding. B. SAI risks hold greater weight. They cover all schemes comprehensively. C. Both have equal weight. Investor can rely on either. Or D. Neither is binding. Risk is inherent and not legally disclosed. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is option A. Let's see why. SID contains scheme-specific information which forms part of the contractual agreement and is legally binding. Though SAI provides general information, SID risks are more directly applicable. A mutual fund's Statement of Additional Information, SAI, includes a detailed policy on related party transactions and conflict of interest. If an investor suspects a conflict not disclosed in the scheme information document, SID, but mentioned in the SAI, what is the investor's position regarding the disclosure and which document should be primarily relied upon for statutory disclosures? Here are your options. A. Conflicts must be disclosed in KIM only. Investor has no recourse. B. Investor cannot rely on either. Disclosures are at AMC's discretion. C. Only SID disclosures are valid. SAI is optional and non-binding. Or D. Investor can rely on SAI for statutory disclosures including conflicts. SAI is part of the offer documents. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is option D. Let's see why. SAI contains statutory disclosures including related party transactions and conflicts of interest. Investors should rely on SAI for such information as it forms part of the legal offer documents. Moving on to the next one. If a mutual fund scheme information document, SID, states that investments will be made in instruments rated at least AA by credit rating agencies, but the fund manager invests 10% in A-rated bonds due to market opportunities, what regulatory and investor implications arise considering the principle of caveat emptor? Here are your options. A. Violation of SID. Investor can claim misrepresentation. Caveat emptor applies as investor should have read SID. B. No violation. Fund manager has discretion per SAI. C. No violation. Rating changes are market risks, covered under risk disclosures. Or D. Investor is entitled to compensation automatically. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option A. Let's see why. Investing below stated credit quality is a breach of SID, which is binding. While caveat emptor applies, the AMC is expected to adhere to stated investment restrictions. Investor can raise grievance for misrepresentation. Let's tackle this exam question. A mutual fund investor reads the Key Information Memorandum KIM, which mentions the fund's benchmark as Nifty 50, while the Scheme Information Document SID mentions Nifty 100. The fund's performance is compared against Nifty 50 in reports. Which document's benchmark is applicable legally, and what risk does this discrepancy pose? Here are your options. A. SID's benchmark, Nifty 100, is legally applicable. Discrepancy can mislead investors. B. No risk. Both benchmarks represent equity indices. C. Fund manager can choose any benchmark. No legal implications. Or D. KIM's benchmark, Nifty 50, is legally binding. SID is informational. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option A. Let's see why. SID is the primary legal document describing scheme features, including benchmark. Discrepancies between SID and KIM can mislead investors, posing compliance risks for the AMC. Test your knowledge with this one. A mutual fund scheme's Statement of Additional Information, SAI, provides detailed information about the AMC's experience and performance, but the Scheme Information Document, SID, does not mention AMC's past performance. If an investor wants to assess the AMC's track record before investing, which document should they rely on primarily and why? Here are your options. A. Neither. Past performance is not disclosed in offer documents. B. KIM, as it summarizes key information including AMC performance. C. SAI, as it contains statutory information about the AMC including experience and performance. Or D. SID, as it is scheme-specific and legally binding. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option C. Let's see why. SAI contains broader statutory information about the AMC, such as experience and performance. SID focuses on scheme-specific details. Therefore, for AMC track record, SAI is primary. Let's look at this next question. A mutual fund scheme's Scheme Information Document, SID, states that the scheme will invest at least 15% in international equities. The investor finds that due to regulatory restrictions, the scheme invests only 5% abroad. Considering the principle of caveat emptor and SEBI regulations, what is the investor's legal position? Here are your options. A. Investor can claim breach as SID mandates 15%. Caveat emptor does not protect fund for non-compliance. B. No breach. Regulatory restrictions override SID provisions. C. Investor must accept market and regulatory risks, no recourse. Or D. Investor can exit without exit load due to breach. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option A. Let's see why. SID is a binding document. If regulatory restrictions prevent compliance, the fund must disclose this. Failure to disclose or comply constitutes breach. Caveat emptor applies, but fund must adhere to SID or disclose changes. Here is another practice question. An investor wants to invest in a mutual fund scheme but finds that the Key Information Memorandum (KIM) and the Scheme Information Document (SID) have differing minimum investment amounts, 10,000 in KIM and 5,000 in SID. According to SEBI's prescribed format and regulations, which amount should the investor consider legally binding? Here are your options. A. 5,000 as per SID, which is the detailed offer document. B. Investor can choose either amount as both are advisory. C. 10,000 as per KIM, since it highlights key information. Or D. Investment cannot be made due to discrepancy. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option A. Let's see why. SID is the comprehensive and legally binding offer document. KIM is a summary and may have errors. In case of discrepancy, SID prevails. Test your knowledge with this one. A mutual fund scheme's Statement of Additional Information (SAI) discloses that the AMC holds 40% stake in the sponsor company, but the Scheme Information Document (SID) does not mention this. How does this affect the investor's understanding of conflict of interest, and which document should be relied upon for full disclosure? Here are your options. A. SID must contain all conflict disclosures. SAI is supplementary. B. Neither document is required to disclose ownership stakes. C. Investor cannot act as disclosure is partial. Or D. Investor should rely on SAI for conflict of interest disclosures. SID may not cover all such details. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option D. Let's see why. SAI contains statutory disclosures including related party holdings and conflicts. Investors should refer to SAI for comprehensive information on AMC and sponsor relationships. Test your knowledge with this one. A mutual fund scheme's Scheme Information Document (SID) specifies a lock-in period of 3 years for its equity-linked savings scheme (ELSS). An investor redeems after 2.5 years. The AMC levies an exit load of 2%. According to SEBI regulations and scheme documents, is this exit load justified, and which document governs such charges? Here are your options. A. No. Exit load is not justified during lock-in. SID governs exit load and lock-in. B. Yes. Exit load applies as per SID. C. Exit load is governed by SAI and can be imposed anytime. Or D. Lock-in period can be waived by AMC discretion. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option A. Let's see why. ELSS funds have a mandatory 3-year lock-in during which redemption is not permitted. Exit load cannot be applied for premature redemption as redemption itself is prohibited. SID specifies lock-in and exit load. A mutual fund scheme's Key Information Memorandum (KIM) mentions that the fund invests 25% in mid-cap stocks, while the Scheme Information Document (SID) states 20%. If the fund manager invests 18% in mid-cap stocks, which document stated allocation is legally binding, and how should the investor interpret this inconsistency? Here are your options. A. SID's 20% is binding. Investor should consider SID for legal compliance. B. Investor should ignore both due to inconsistency. C. KIM's 25% is binding. SID is informational. Or D. Both are advisory. Fund manager has discretion. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option A. Let's see why. SID is the comprehensive legal document. KIM is a simplified summary. In case of conflict, SID prevails. Fund manager must comply with SID. Here is another practice question. An investor finds that the Scheme Information Document (SID) for a balanced mutual fund has not been updated for 2 years, while the Statement of Additional Information (SAI) was updated recently to reflect changes in AMC management. If the investor relies only on SID, what risk does this pose, and which regulatory requirement addresses this issue? Here are your options. A. Investor can assume changes do not affect investment decisions. B. Risk of outdated information. SEBI mandates periodic updation of both SID and SAI. C. No risk. Only SID needs updating. Or D. SEI updates automatically apply to SID. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option B. Let's see why. SEBI regulations require both SID and SAI to be periodically updated to reflect material changes. Relying solely on outdated SID can misinform investor. Let's tackle this exam question. A mutual fund scheme information document, SID, states the fund invests in government securities with a minimum rating of AAA. If the fund manager invests in securities rated AA+ temporarily, which document governs this investment restriction? And what is the implication for compliance? Here are your options. A. SID governs investment restrictions. Deviation is non-compliance and breach. B. SAI governs. Minor deviations are allowed. C. KIM governs. Investment ratings are advisory only. Or D. No breach. Ratings can fluctuate without notice. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option A. Let's see why. SID specifies scheme-specific investment criteria, including ratings. Any deviation without disclosure is breach. SAI and KIM do not override SID. Test your knowledge with this one. An investor refers to the scheme information document, SID, and finds that the fund offers a systematic investment plan, SIP, with a minimum installment of 1,000. The Key Information Memorandum, KIM, mentions a minimum SIP installment of 2,000. What should the investor consider as the binding minimum SIP amount and why? Here are your options. A. 2,000 as per KIM, which summarizes key terms. B. Investor can choose either amount. C. SIP minimums are decided by AMC discretion. Or D. 1,000 as per SID, which is the detailed legal document. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option D. Let's see why. SID is the comprehensive legal document governing scheme terms. KIM is a summary and may have errors. SID prevails in case of conflict. Moving on to the next one. If an investor does not read the scheme information document, SID, before investing and later claims ignorance of an exit load clause explicitly stated in the SID, what principle applies and what is the investor's legal standing? Here are your options. A. Principle of caveat emptor applies. Investor is bound by the SID terms regardless. B. Investor can claim exemption citing ignorance. C. Exit load cannot be charged if investor did not read SID. Or D. Mutual fund must refund exit load in such cases. Take a moment to pause the video and decide. The correct answer is Option A. Let's see why. Caveat emptor, buyer beware, means investor is presumed to have read and understood the SID. Ignorance is not a valid defense.